Hey guys, let me know if you can hear me. We're going to be kicking off in about 3 minutes. So feel free to introduce yourselves and tell your friends, share this link with your friends on social media, and we're going to be kicking off very soon. "48 seconds to go. We're going to be kicking off really soon. It's good to see so many regulars there. Good to see you guys, Stuart, Rolf, Tracy, Brad, and I think I saw Ralph Nelson in there a little bit earlier on. Good to see Bruce in the house. Bruce is our friendly moderator. He will take care of any links and all those kind of things and issues. And behave yourselves or he'll slap you. Just kidding. No, none. Good to see you, Russ. So here we go. 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And here we are, live from lockdown. Good to see you guys. Your happy, smiling faces. Well, I guess I just have to imagine those. So I'm glad you could join us this week for our 36th episode of Live from Lockdown. Can you believe that? 36 weeks we've been doing this. And I know, for some of us, we've got fresh lockdown, especially here in California. So here we are once again. So I hope you guys are doing good. We're just going to kind of come together here. And this is where we have our little, get together with the cafe crew. And thanks for those of you who have been joining us every single week, which is a lot of you. Thanks for for being here regularly. Just shout out there in the chat. And for those of you who are new, your first time joining us live, welcome. Great to have you. And if you have no idea what this is about us. We come together every week, every Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And then we dig into Photoshop, and then we'll have a little bit of our Afterglow at the end, which is when we just kind of hang out and chat, do questions and answers, things like that. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to jump into our lessons, and then, of course, we're going to just kind of chat and hang out at the end and do all our shout-outs and all that fun stuff. So why don't we get started? I'm going to give you a screen right now. Here's my Photoshop screen. And what we're doing this week is going to be interesting. We're going to be doing some black and white and vintage color. I mean, that's just what I kind of came up with the name. I'm not really sure what to call it. But we're going to be looking at different methods of converting a color photo into black and white. And, it's good to have more than one option and more than one way of doing things. Then we're going to be looking at creating some different types of coloring effects, sepia tone, different things like that. And then we're actually going to go in and create some tritones, duotones, quadtones, things like that. And I'm going to show you how to do that inside of Photoshop. There's some really great tools in there. And traditionally, these were printed with the different colored inks, but we can easily convert those final results into RGB so we can use them digitally as well. So I don't know if you guys have ever played around with those tools, but we're going to get our chance today. So without further ado, let's get started and just have a look. The first thing we're going to do is just black and white conversion. How do you convert your photos from color to black and white? Wow, I've got quite a few layers in this photo. Maybe I should just go to the basic photo. Let me go down here. This is the original photo there. It's just a raw file. And hopefully you guys can hear me and see everything. It looks like everything is working properly, which is good. No technical issues this week. Yay. All right, so why don't I just flatten? You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to flatten this whole image. So I'm just going to choose image. I guess it's under layers. This is something I never do. I never go down here and flatten images. So we're going to flatten this right now, just so we can all just start with the same thing. And I'm going to create a couple of copies of it, just so we can look at different ways of converting these from color to black and white. Now the first way and the easiest way, which we will actually use when we do our duotones and stuff, is if we go under image mode. And the image mode here, this is telling us what color mode we're in. Maybe another episode I could go through all of these, but we're not going to do that today. But right now we're in RGB color, which is the most common. And we're in 16-bit. I could change it to 8-bit, doesn't really matter. But we could choose grayscale. And if we choose grayscale, what this is going to do is it's just going to basically throw away, if we look in the channels, there's only one channel now. There's a gray channel. It's thrown away all the color, and it's gone from color to black and white. Okay, let's undo. This is probably, unless you're going to do a duotone or something that we'll cover later, this is probably the worst way of creating a black and white photo. You really don't want to use that method. Okay, so the second method, let's have a look on the top one here. The second method is just desaturate. Command-Shift-U. And actually make sure. Hang on, we get a question there. So we could choose image. And we go down to the adjustments and desaturate. Boom. That will get us that. Or use the keyboard shortcut. Command-Shift-U, Control-Shift-U. Alright, so there we go. And someone's asking what factors make the most effective color picture to convert to black and white. Yeah, we'll kind of talk about that a little bit too. What kind of photos do we want to use as black and white photos? We'll look at that. So that's a second method. Okay, let's have a look at a third method, which is maybe a little bit more usable. And this method, what we want to do is go under our adjustment layers here. And this is one that I will use a lot. And then we're going to choose black and white. And this enables us to create a black and white adjustment layer. Now, this is really good because it gives us control. The other two methods just gave us a black and white image, but didn't give us any control over how we mix those colors. Because we know there's blues in the sky here. And by the way, wide angle with the polarizer doesn't always work when you're shooting. So what we can do is let's take the blues here and we're just going to reduce the blues. And look at this, we can darken those blues down and see how it totally affects the different tones. So I was using a polarizer on here, as I just mentioned. And see that completely changes the way that looks. What about the reds? So we could go in here and notice the mountains in the background. So now we can make these mountains look good. We can make the sky look good. We can play around with different parts of the photo. Now, if you're not sure what color tones are under here, just grab this little finger and maybe we're going to grab this log and we're going to drag that. Notice we got the yellow. So we can brighten up those yellow tones or darken them down. Now, this gives you the ability, when we're working here, notice we can just go to these different areas. What this does is it gives us the ability to shape this black and white image how we want. What we are able to do is use the color information underneath to draw out details in certain areas, highlight certain areas and push back certain areas. Let's try this on a portrait photo. Here's a shot I did of Colin. She models for me quite a bit. Well, before she moved out of the country. All right, so what we're going to do is let's do the same thing. Let's go in here and we're going to use the black and white adjustment. And notice we could go in and we know the skin tones are going to be in the red, so you could brighten or darken those skin tones. So we can set those independently. Here, dress is green. Maybe we want to brighten it up a little bit. But it's not necessarily working there, so let's grab our tool and see what it thinks green is. It's more cyans. And you can see that we can get that. And just by clicking and dragging on these different areas, now we can start to bring out the tones how we want. So my suggestion would be, you might want to start with, something like the dress or the clothing. Get this how you want it to look. Then I'm going to do the hair. And then finally you might go into the reds there and then just fine tune your skin tones. Depending on what kind of mood or how you want to set that image, you can do that. Okay, so this is another method of working with black and white. And this is where, things like dodging and burning might come in because the lips are a little too light. So you might go in and dodge and burn those lips to darken those. Or you could create a separate adjustment over the top of it. There's lots of ways we could do that. But we'll get to that in a minute. All right, so that's another method that gives us more control. Okay, let's look at an additional method. And what I'm going to do is we're just going to go and grab some different photos. I've got some different photos here that we can use. Why don't we do this one here? This looks kind of fun. I'm going to right-click and open in Camera Raw. So here we are in Camera Raw. So this is another way of doing it. Now, for those of you who don't know, Camera Raw is part of Photoshop. So it comes with Photoshop, and since Photoshop CC, it's been available as a filter. Before that, it was just a plugin, and we could go there from Bridge, which is what we just did. On the newer versions, you can open Camera Raw directly from Photoshop, and we have a whole Live from Lockdown episode just on Camera Raw, so check that out if you want to know more about it. And you can see that there on the YouTube channel. You can also see that on photoshopCAFE. All right. So let's have a look here. So we want to convert this to black and white to go for a little bit more of a vintage look. Now, someone did ask that question, what photos give themselves well to black and white conversions, not just any photo? Yeah, there's a couple of things you want to be looking for, and that's contrasting tones in the photograph. So you're looking for contrast in the areas of lights and darks. Watch old movies to see good examples of that. For example, if you have a dark background, you might have a light face, or maybe you have a shadow silhouette figure against a lighter background, so you get that kind of pop or that separation because you're not using color to separate when you're doing black and white, you're using tones. So look for forms, shapes, interesting lighting, different things like that. Or in this case, something maybe we want to make it more of a period. So right now we've got the Hercules, it's an old tugboat, looks very modern, but maybe we want to make it look more vintage. So the way we could do that is to take the color away. All right, so let's have a look at how to do it here. So as you probably know, there's a black and white adjustment. So when you're inside of here, or this is Camera Raw, or you're inside of Lightroom, same thing. Hit B and W, we'll convert it to black and white. Now, you would think we're going to jump in and start doing the black and white mixer, which we will. But there's another setting in here which you probably don't expect is really going to make a huge difference. And that's under the basic settings. Yeah, it's the temperature. You wouldn't think that changing the color temperature would make a difference on your black and white because there's no color, right? So the way this works is it looks at the underlying color tones inside of those channels. I'll show you guys some channels in a second. But when you're inside those channels, there's different colors in there. So you're pulling those in and out, and they're affecting the way the black and white adjustment. So watch this. So if I change this temperature and I cool it, notice how it completely changes the flavor. And let's push it up to warm it. Completely different. In fact, pushing it all the way down to the coolest possible option, I like. The reason for that is making all the details pop. Nothing is blown out. So a lot of the time, your first goal is to just bring back as much detail as you can in the image. Sometimes, you might want to go for more of a noir effect where everything is very, very dark and shadowy with a very, very bright highlight, which is a more contrasty look, think like old Hitchcock films and things like that. So that's definitely a style. Other styles, you want to bring out as much detail as you can so when you print it, you can see the details. All right, so that's our first step there. We've adjusted the temperature. Now you could also adjust the tint. And on some images, you're going to see a big difference. Yeah, we're going to see that here. Look at that. Changing that tint absolutely changes this as well. So the temperature and the tint are a good way to just kind of set up the image. I'll maybe just push that slightly into the greens, but not much. So of course, now we can use our basic adjustments here. We can use our highlights to recover our highlight detail. We can use our shadows to open up our shadow detail. And you can see how we can do that. And I'm just going to open up, what I'm doing is just bringing in detail. Okay, so we've got a lot of detail here now. Let's set our overall exposure. It's just pretty good, almost where it is. And a lot of the time, the meters built inside modern cameras are going to get you a pretty bang-on exposure most times now. Unless, of course, you're in a very, very high contrast scene and you're using a spot meter. All right, so let's go. I want to add a little bit of flavor now. So let's push the blacks. So now we're going to just give it more black. See what we're doing there? It's giving it more contrast. Now, if you want to be perfect, watch up here. You can see in the histogram, if I push it too far, it clips and forces areas to black. Another way you can do that is if I hold down the Alt or the Option key, I can see that. But you know what? Sometimes you don't want to just go by this histogram. Sometimes it's desirable to plug up some of these blacks just to give it, just that thicker, darker, deeper kind of a mood. Same thing with the whites. We could go and if I hold down the Alt or the Option key, as I move, I can start to see where it clips. So there's our optimal exposure by the meter. Any of you who are musicians or sound people, you would know what looks perfect on the meter is not necessarily what sounds the best, though. So we want to put a little flavor in here. So let's play around with our whites. Maybe we're going to push it down a little bit. Give it a little bit more of a moody kind of a feel. So it's good to know where you are on your histogram, to understand that you're pushing it into a shadow. And when you push it, when it clips, what that means is those areas that go to the left are going to be forced to pure black. The areas that go to the right are going to be forced to pure white without any detail. And sometimes that's desirable. All right, so we can maybe give this a little punch of clarity. And, this is not looking bad. So if I look at this before and after, I'm really liking how this is being converted. So this is another method, and this is using Camera Raw, which is one of my favorite methods for, obvious reasons, is look how much control we have here. We have an incredible amount of control, and I'm just going to open that inside of Photoshop. All right, let's go back, and we're going to look at yet another method. Why don't we do this old Western town here? We're going to open this up inside of Photoshop. So we're just going to choose Open. All right, and yes, good point there. PhotoMaker says there's some good black and white presets in ACR, and there are. There's some wonderful presets that'll get you right off the bat, and we'll look at a couple of those as well. So the other thing I did want to mention when we talked about the channels, in fact, let me just go back to Bridge, see what other images we've got here. Okay, those are good. Let's take this old sailing ship. I just think this would be more fun. All right, so we've got this old sailing ship here, and looking in the channels. The channels are how the image is built. So it's built with just solid colors. The first channel is red. The second channel is green, and the third channel is blue. Now notice when I choose the green, the area in the water gets brighter. And that's because we're working with light, because the more of that color that's present, the brighter that's going to be. So for example, if I just, let's just click there. If you look at the red, look at the sky. See how dark that sky is? If we go to the blue, that sky is very bright because there's more blue present in the blue channel. So working with light, the more of that color present, the lighter it gets. So you can see we've got separate colors setups in each one of these channels. So that's why you don't want to just go to the monotone or just throw away all the colors. We want to take advantage of the different color in these channels and blend them together. And that's essentially what's happening, when we're working in Camera Raw, and some different adjustments. But now I'm going to show you how to purely do it just using the channels. So we're here inside that. We're going to grab our adjustment layer, and we're going to choose the channel mixer. So this is showing the image, and this represents the red channel, this is the green channel, and the blue channel that we looked at. Now the nice thing about this is you really don't have to understand the channels that much to use it. All you need to know is, that we can take color from each channel. Now I prefer to do it that way because you're going to get that detail. It's going to be cleaner, it's going to be purer. So what we're going to do is choose monochrome. Immediately this is going to change it to black and white. So now if we want to darken the blues or the sky, we adjust the blue slider. That water, the greens, we know we can lighten or darken those greens to lighten or darken the water. Reds, this will affect skin tones, wood, rocks, different things like that. So what I'm doing right now is I'm adjusting this, and it's looking pretty good. Now there's a setting, it's too dark of course, it's got no contrast. Now there's a setting here that says total is 81%. So I can actually just go in here. I know I've got a little leverage. I can brighten that up if I want. Or I can darken it down here. See what I'm doing? I'm going to darken that down. So we want to bring this to about 100. So that means we want to lighten up some of these areas. Let's lighten up the blue a little bit. And notice now we're just gone over 100. It shows at 102. That's just kind of warning me. Of course, if I set this to 0, it's probably going to be a little brighter. So let's just go down, and we want to darken something to compensate. So let's darken the green a little bit. So we're always watching this 100%. Now you can go above 100%, or you could stay under 100%. It's up to you. You don't have to do the 100%. But if we look at this before and after, we've converted this to a black and white image, and we've maintained a lot of detail. And if we look at this, the quality's quite nice. I probably should have used a slower exposure, a shorter exposure though. It looks like I got a little camera shake on there when you go up close. But look at the detail. We're not introducing noise, and it's maintaining the quality of that photo. So the channel mixer is a very good way to work. If you want to work pure, you want to get a really, really pure split, or whatever you want to call it in here. So one of the things you could do after you've done your channel mixer is just select both the layers, right click, convert to a smart object. This is just, one more option. And then when this is a smart object, now we can go into filter here, and we can go to the camera raw. And now we're inside camera raw. We can use our settings in here, adjusting our highlights, our shadows. If we want to give it a little bit more of a curve, you want to give it more contrast. See, what we can do is now we're going in and adjusting what's already a black and white photo. So we can play around. The detail slider might be good. Let's go back to our basics. Before we sharpen it, texture is nice to add. Look at that. See how it changes the feel, clarity, dehaze. And you can see what we're doing here. We're just playing around. And, and it just gives us a little bit more, with that more pure black and white conversion, if you're a purist. I'm not a purist. I go for whatever gives me the best result. So I just wanted to show you, first of all, these are different options to do your black and white conversions. Let's go further, and we're going to, we did mention some of these presets. Let's look at some of these presets. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on this photo here because I've made adjustments to it. And let me reset this. So I'm going to go to the develop settings, and I'm going to do the camera raw defaults, and that puts that to a color image. So let me double click this. And so all I did is, because I've made adjustments previously inside of camera raw, if you want to get rid of those, do what I did there in Bridge. You can just right click and go to the original. So here's our original adjustments. Now someone did mention presets. There's presets and also color profiles. So if we click on this little option here, this brings us into profiles, And we have Adobe Monochrome, which is an Adobe conversion. So this is an actual color profile. It's not a preset, it's a profile. Kind of, so that's how it's converting it off the raw data into the image. And if we go under here, there's actually a set of profiles for black and white. And let's have a look at our black and white settings here. We can click on one. Well, let's just open them all up so we can see them all here. Let me just pop that open. All right. Let's have a look here. And we go through the different things. Look at this. These are different options. And Ron was asking, do we sell Live from Lockdown shirts? You know, that's a great idea. We don't have any Live from Lockdown shirts. We don't have any merch at all, to be honest. But, you know, that's a good idea. I'll look into that. How many of you would be interested in that? Let us know in the comments. All right, so look, we're just clicking on some different conversion, you know, some different filters here. And you can see, yeah, we've got quite a few different ones here. And, yeah, so we can do black and white through the color profiles. And then, of course, we do have our presets. Now, these profiles in Camera Raw are exactly the same. Same as these presets. So let's go to our presets. And under our presets, and someone's asking about Nick Silver Effects for black and white conversion. Yeah, Nick Silver Effects works really good too. It's a wonderful filter. So yeah, sometimes I use that as well. So here we go. We can roll over some of these, and you can see we've got some different looks. Now these are great, you know, when I'm working with clients and stuff like that, because I'll use these in Lightroom. What I'll do is I'll select a whole folder of photos. In fact, I did this when I was on tour with David Lee Roth. He loves black and white photos. So, you know, right after the show, you know, I would go and sort out the photos. And the next day I'd sit down with him and go through the photos. And sometimes he'd be like, show me these in black and white. And so I could just select, you know, a black and white preset like this. And boom, you can see them all in black and white immediately. It's a quick way to just get there. And so I do like this. Now, a preset, generally, I never use a preset just as it comes out of the box. It's a good starting place. And I like this look. This is a more kind of a heavier, deeper kind of a black and white, a little bit more classic. But you can also go into the adjustments, and because the difference about a preset and a profile is a preset just moves sliders. A profile actually sets that into the image at the beginning. And you can't really change the parameters of the profile, whereas you can change all the parameters in a preset. So notice what it's done is it converted to black and white. It's changed the temperature and some things. So maybe I want to just, you know, open up these shadows a little bit here. See a little bit more of his face. You know, we got man's best friend here, and I guess his other best friend. So let me just choose a crop. I want to crop this in a little bit. Let's bring it up. I don't have to show the whole horse. It's nice it's got hooves and stuff, but we don't necessarily have to see that because, you know, we could even go in tight. We can make this a vertical, because this is where the story is, right here. That's the story. We've got this connection between the three different animals. Oh, I guess he's an animal. I guess we're animals. All right, so we're going to go here. Going to choose the highlights a little bit. And you can see what we can do. We can go in and make these adjustments in here as well. So, you know, that's another way of doing the black and white adjustments. So we've got lots and lots of ways to do this. Now, which is the right way and which is the wrong way? Well, first of all, there's no wrong way except for maybe Command-Shift-U, you know, desaturate. That's the wrong way because you're losing all that detail that you've got in those different color channels, and you're missing out on that opportunity to mix them together. So any of the other methods, the black and white, camera raw, channel mixer, those are the ones I would recommend to get your initial adjustment, because you're not throwing anything away, you're not losing anything. And then from there, you know, there's a lot of things that we can do. You know, we've got some different black and whites in here. Let me just choose the window and I'll just arrange these now. And, you know, we've got some black and white adjustments. I guess we didn't get to do that one, so Better luck next time. We've got some different images here, and so what we want to do is maybe look at some different things we can do with these black and white images. We've got different ways of applying different kind of color and different types of tones and different things like that. So we're going to jump into that right now. And thank you, Ashton. I'm glad you like that crop. All right, so why don't we look at something like let's take this image here and let's do a duotone. So we're going to create an actual duotone. So if we look at this right now, this is a gray image. And why is that gray? Because we did that inside of Camera Raw and we opened it as that monotone image inside of Camera Raw. Let's have a look here. And under Bridge, of course, if I right click on here, we're going to go back to our original. So our original file is still saved, but what we do is we opened it from Camera Raw and we've got our grayscale image. Now, if you want to do a duotone, you have to do that. So let me just show you what I would do here is with this image selected, which is Image, Mode, Grayscale. And this is when you want to apply that setting. You don't want to do Image Mode Grayscale on the color image. You want to make those adjustments like I showed you so you get more control over them. And then you can drop these down to these monotone images. Let me just get this guy here. And let's just move to a new window. Actually, I don't want a new window. I want to make that one full. Let's just go under the window. Let's just go to our range, our normal. Consolidate all to tabs. I was trying to find a quicker way of doing it. All right, so now that we've got this as a grayscale image, we look at the channel. There's just one channel. And this is where we go in and we're going to choose Image Mode. And by the way, those grayscale images, you can open them as RGB inside of Photoshop, just so you know. All right, so what we want to do here is we're going to convert this to a duotone. And then when we go into the duotone, this is actually the last one I created. Let me just do a monotone. So this is where we can add different color curves on here. And now you can actually print these as individual color plates. So if you're sending these off to a printer and and you want to print these you can actually select a color. We've got, and we'll get these colors when we get to it in a second. We can select a specific color, PMS color, and tell the printer I want to use this PMS for this, and I want to use another PMS for a different one. So when we start to get to tritones, quadtones, you could do that for a very specific ink. Of course, what we'll do is we'll convert this to an RGB when we're finished. All right, so we're going to start with the monotone just so I can show you how it works. So essentially a monotone is a single color. We can click on the color swatch and we can change that color. If you wanted it to be blue, for example, if you could change that blue. So if you just wanted to just put a solid tint across here, we could do that. Now, if you wanted to use, color libraries, we can go in here. We can choose Pantone colors. So these are our PMS colors. So we've got all the different colors here. So if you wanted to choose a specific color from a color swatch, this is where you would do it. And you could specifically find those colors in here and select a specific color if you wanted. And if you didn't want to do that, we just go back to our regular color swatch. What am I doing here? Let's go to our picker. There we go. All right, so you could do that. Now, if you click on this little option, this enables us to set a color curve for each one of these colors. Now, before you even start, remember, now we're working with pigment. We're not working with light. What does that mean? You're used to curves, right? You're used to pulling this down to darken the shadows and this down to lighten the highlights. Notice it didn't do that. It works the opposite. And if you look at this grayscale at the bottom, instead of black on the left and white on the right, we've got white on the left and black on the right. Now, the reason for this is when we're working with light, black is the absence of light. White is all the colors put together, known, I believe, additive color. So when you add all the colors, you get white. Subtractive colors, when you take all the color away, you get white. So you're working with pigment, so it's opposite. So just flip this around. So you think about this. If you want to have, there's the blacks. If you want to darken those blacks, sorry, we're lightening those blacks. If you want to darken those blacks, you'll push them up. So we go the opposite of what we would do before. Whoa, didn't want to add that curve. Okay, so you can see what we're doing. So now if we go down here, we want to lighten our whites. We pull them down. We want to darken our lights. Pull it up. So pulling it up now will darken. So it works the opposite of what you're used to. Pull it up will darken. Pull it down will lighten it. So if you want to lighten your whites, add more contrast, you can do that. And, you know, you've probably seen effects like this or just, you know, prints like this. Kind of almost, you know, this is what we used to get in a newspaper. You know, if we want to go back and just, you know, select a you know, just like a black. Let's choose a black. We can do that. Okay. So let me just cancel out of there. And I'm going to show you other options. So where does this get really useful? This is where this gets useful. If we go up under image mode, and then we choose our duotone once again. Let's do, here's a duotone. And this is one that I previously created. And why does this look the way it does? Well, essentially, the first color is black. You can see that. There's our black. And then we've set a secondary color. So in this case, I see yellow. Let's change it to, you know, something like a green, just so you can see. And then if we go into the color curve, once again, clicking inside that curve, notice what I've done here. And this will be a great way to just demonstrate how this works. Let me throw that away. Okay, so notice right now with that flat on the bottom, there's no adjustment. This color, even though we've added this greenish color, it's not showing in the picture. It's a pretty ugly color, but it'll be easy for you guys to see. So look at this grayscale bar. We've got white and black. So if we want to add to the whites or the light area, notice as we increase that, we're adding more, right? If you wanted to add it to the shadows, pulling up, notice now it's applying it to the shadow area. So that's essentially how it works. And of course, this is the default setting. This is how a duotone looks. So it's applying it full to the shadow and nothing to the highlight. All right, so maybe we want to put a little bit more of that color into our highlights, a little less into our shadows. And see what we're doing now is we're changing it with the curve. And in the midtones, do we want more in the midtones? We can drag that up, pull it down to reduce it in the midtones and just apply that color just to the brightest and the darkest parts. See what we're doing there? All right, so let's go to something. Now we can do a tritone, which you saw. And what the tritone does is it enables us to add another color. So we're going to click on that color there. So we've got the green. Let's do something like maybe a blue might work nicely with this. Let's have a look. Or yellow. Or an orange. Let's go down to more of a yellowy orange kind of a color. There we go. More of a sepia. So this color here, we applied it to the highlights and the shadows on ink number 2. But on ink number 3, it's just going regular. See there? So let's click on here, and we're going to do something different with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the opposite. So we don't want to apply this to the shadows or the highlights. So I pull that down, you don't see anything. So why don't I just click in here to add a couple of points. And now I'm going to pull up in the middle. And look what's happening. Now I'm just applying that tone just to the midtones. So, you know, you guys have been creating split tones inside of Camera Raw and different places like that, but you don't get this level of control. How many of you guys is this new to? You've never seen this stuff before? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments. How many of you are used to working with these guys? That print designers are probably familiar with this. Maybe not so much recently, because you don't see so much of this as we used to, you know, a decade or so ago. Or even a couple of decades ago. You know, sometimes I used to do it because, you know, when I first started, sometimes you couldn't afford full color. Full color was actually more expensive to print than individual colors. And these days, you know, full color process is the cheapest way to print. doing individual colors is actually expensive. So sometimes you can only afford 2 colors, and you couldn't afford full color, so you would create these and then you would print it and you would save money. But now it's also really cool to, yeah, so I see Brian also used to do that for cost, but it's not that way anymore because most people don't print this way anymore. Now, this is also an incredible way to create really nice gallery prints. If you guys even just doing one-off, high-end looking prints, you just get in here and see what we're doing with the color and the different tones. You just can't get this level of control inside of a lot of the regular tools inside of Photoshop. And Ashton's wondering if you could use this on a non-black and white. No, you can't. You can only use it on a black and white image, but it's easy enough to fake that. All you need to do is just save this out as a layer, drop it on top of a color photo, and then you can play with the blending modes and masking and mix the two together. So you could definitely do that. Now you have to name these, and a lot of the things you would do if you were, if you're just doing like we're going to do right now, doing it to the RGB, you can put any name you want in there. If you want, you could call it an elf. It doesn't matter. But if you're going to be doing this, a printer's going to be separating these into plates. So that's when you would go into the color libraries, you would choose your Pantone color, and you would give it a very specific color, a PMS. And you'll see these ones with the C means that these are coated. So that means it's on that shiny, glossy paper. That means, there's a coating that goes on the top of that. And those generally give you more saturated colors. But if you're painting on a non-coated, then you're going to see that without the C or even a U, depending on the color library you're using. And that will print onto matte paper. So whatever color you choose here, when you give this to a printer, they're actually just going to create 3 separate black plates. They're not going to see the colors. The colors are helping you visualize it, so you need to tell them what colors you want each of these plates when they do that, just so you know that. Now, once again, we can just click OK, and we've got our tritone, and if we want to choose image mode, we can convert this to an RGB, and boom, there we go. Now we've got an RGB color, and now we can print this on our desktop printer. So if you're not sending it off to a commercial press and you want to do it yourself, you want to do, fine art portraits, different things like that, landscapes, you can convert it to RGB, and now this is working just like, if we go into curves, now just going to be the curves you're used to. Everything's going to be back to normal. See that? We can go in there, we can do our contrast, you can do whatever you want. But I kind of like working this way sometimes because it gives you some just really nice looking images, in my opinion. All right, so how are you guys holding up? Am I frying your brains? Because I know I see a lot of you, this is new, so hopefully it's not, it's not too much. I'm not overwhelming you. Let's look at, let's go back here. And I'm just going to duplicate this. So what I'm doing here is I am just going in here and I'm right-clicking and I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to right-click on this one, develop settings, camera raw defaults. Okay, so let's open this inside of Photoshop. And I'm going to show you guys, because we talked about mixing the color with the black and white. Let's see which one we're working on. That one there. Okay, so if I take this and I drag this, holding down the Shift key, it'll drop it in here. I'm just going to hit the 5 key, and what that 5 key does is it's just giving me 50% opacity, and now I can just drag this into position. Now I want to get this exact, so I'm going to zoom in, and this is where the blending mode you've probably never used. Let me get 100% opacity first. And this is where we go in and we're going to use our difference blending mode. Oh, difference. What does that do? This enables us to align things. So if we look up here in the hat there, notice we can see that line when it's not perfectly aligned. So you can use difference mode to just nudge things. And if we were working on 2 layers that were exactly the same, this would just show pure black. So this enables us to align it. It's not perfect, but it's close enough. Now there's another setting that we can use. I'm curious if this will work. We can do auto align. Let's select both of these. I'm going to unlock it just in case. and then choose Edit, Auto Align Layers. And we just want to do reposition. We don't want to stretch it or warp it in any way. We just want to move it. Click OK. And nope, that didn't work. I was wondering if it was going to work with the different color tones, so I guess it doesn't. Oh, hang on, I might have had that set to panorama. Let me have a look one more time. Let's go back here to Edit, Auto Blend Modes. Oh, sorry, Auto Align. Yeah, no. Okay, so the nice thing about this is now we can blend these together. So if we wanted to take the color layer and just drop it down and just give it a little bit of color, almost like a painted color, see what we can do now is we can put that color there is mixing with our duotone, tritone underneath. You know, of course, you could go and just do spot color if you wanted. So let me grab our object selection tool and let's just drag around his shirt and see if we can select that. Not bad. Hit the Option key. Got a little bit over. And let's go. All right. Let's see if we can get his face out of there. I love this object selection tool, by the way. Works quite well. All right. So now we've got that selected. You know, and if we want to create a mask, you know, we could do that. And now we get that spot color. Maybe take the opacity down a little bit so it's not so crazy. And just give it a little bit of color there. You know, so these are just, you know, different things, you know, creative explorations here. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. Thanks, I'm seeing there in the comments. And if you guys are liking this, do me a favor, hit that like button right now. It helps us with the algorithm. It lets more people know that we're streaming. So that's just a little thumbs up there for those who are not familiar with it. So just tap that. And also, if you guys haven't subscribed yet, you know, I would really love it if you would hit that subscribe button, and that way you'll know when we go live. It'll give you the notification. And also head over to photoshopcafe.com, join our mailing list, and I also send out an email. By the way, guys, how many of you got here from the email, and how many of you got here from YouTube notifications? I'm curious. And also, how many of you got here from social media? Just let us know. And I see those likes are going up. One more and we get to 100. There we go. Awesome. All right, so as you can see, that's, you know, another method of just kind of playing around, experimenting. So let's have a look at something else. Here's another image. I particularly like this image, even though I got that big mess up here with the filter, the polarizing filter. I did this a few years ago. Went out here for a good friend of mine, Tim Cooper. I don't know if you guys know Tim at all. Great photographer. I've learned a lot from him, especially outdoor photography. Well, actually, that's pretty much what Tim shoots. And then he told me, yeah, dude, don't use that polarizer, you know, on a wide angle, because this is what happens. Yeah. All right, so why don't we go in here, and now we're going to apply some kind of a coloring. And by the way, just to let you guys know, at Photoshop Cafe, we have 4 courses from Tim Cooper. And if you haven't checked out his stuff, his zone system exposure, perfect exposure, is incredible. All right, so let's go in here, and we're going to choose the camera raw filter. All right, so why don't we go down to our newest edition, color grading. So we've got a black and white image, and what we want to do now is we want to apply some color to it. So we're going to look at another method. If we just want to do a constant, choose global, and this is what the global does. And then you just move this and you just apply color. See what a difference we got already, just giving it a little bit of color. And for those of you who missed the session, you know, when we went through here, there's a couple of modifiers. If you hold down the Shift key, we can adjust just the saturation by dragging on this wheel or the saturation slider. So what it does is, you know, instead of having to go down here, if you hold the Shift key, you can do it at the top without having to leave this wheel. Now, if you want to change the hue, hold down the Control or Command key, and now the saturation is not being adjusted, only the hue. And a hue, of course, is what color we're selecting. Yeah, do I want to make this warmer? This color here would be good for the cowboy, actually, probably right there. And now we want to do the saturation. Hold down that shift key and you can do it. Now some people like to just go to the color, but things move real fast. So if you hold down the Alt or the Option key, it enables you to get more precise movements in here. All right, so we can just set, a global color. To reset anything, double click. And why don't we go in and put a color here into the shadows? So we're going to choose just the shadows here. And let's go with some combinations. Here's a nice combination, the green-yellow combination. So let's push a little bit of green into the shadow there. I just want to adjust that saturation now. Let's just reduce it a little bit. Like to be a little subtle sometimes. And let's put some yellow into the highlights. So let's go into those highlights, add that yellow. This is a color combination you've seen. This is a popular color combination. Blue teal is another one you see a lot of movies. And how many color combinations do you guys know? Let us know in the comments too. If you guys have favorite color combinations that you like to use, pop them in there and let everyone know. All right, so this is using the yellow. Now we can go in here and we can change the luminance in these colors too, so we can lighten or darken these tones. And the other option we can do is we can move, our blending. So what our blending will do is if I push the blending to the left, it constrains these colors to the highlights and shadows and leaves the midtones alone. As I increase blending, it pushes those colors into the midtones more. So blending is, think of that as your midtone color balance. Or midtone separation, so to speak. So if you're just going to use shadows and highlights, just leave it there. If you're going to do another color in the midtones, pull your blending all the way down. And now we can go into our midtones, and this will give us a cleaner application of the color that we're applying into those midtones. So let's pull the saturation down a little bit there. So now we've got 3 colors. Now, would this be a tritone? If we were doing the other method? Actually, it wouldn't. It would be a quadtone. And why is that? Because don't forget, black is one of those colors. So when we did the tritone, we were using black and then adding 2 colors. The quadtone, you're applying 3 colors in black. Now, you don't have to have black, but it's advisable to have black so you can keep that definition in the image. All right, so this is what we're doing there. Let's go to our adjustments here. And you can notice there's no balance in here. And the balance is not there because we're working with a monochrome image. So when you're working with a full color image, you'll see the balance, which is where you're pushing it more towards the one color or the other color, the shadow or highlight color. And here's our blending. Let's just blend that so it's not quite so separated. And we can see, hey, you know what? This is another way of getting a great adjustment on the photo. All right, let's try something else. Now let's go back to a color photo. And let's do this. Let's do this winery. Happen to like wine myself. Red wines are more my favorite. Do you guys like wine? Let me know. Whites or reds? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do some basic adjustments here. Let's just set our exposure down a little bit. And, of course, if I wanted, I could just pull the saturation all the way down. This is another way of making the adjustments, and we still get control here. So sometimes what I like to do is pull that saturation almost all the way down and then kick up the vibrance. And notice what we're getting some interesting separation here. So just certain colors, just the strongest colors now are showing through. All right. So I see we got Bruce. Yes, I know Nikki likes wine. And Mike is a beer man. Cold beer. Same with Chris. Guinness. Now, does he like his Guinness warm or does he like it cold? All right, so we can play around with our tints. And notice what we're doing. So we've got just a little bit of color in here. This is another way of working. And this is kind of fun too. Sometimes, just like to do that reduced color. Another way I like to do it sometimes too is just to go in here and just take that vibrance down. And here's the thing, if you take vibrance all the way to the bottom, you're still going to have some color. And the reason is because the way saturation, just works black and white, lots of color. Vibrance looks at what is the most prominent color here? So if there's an area, which is not so much color, it boosts that more. See it in the hills there? Look at the dirt. Take the vibrance down, goes to black and white, turn it up. It's really moving those a lot. But look here in the barrel here, where that color is already pretty saturated here, or there. Notice that it doesn't saturate it as much. It will saturate it, increase the saturation, but not as much as it does in the background, or even in those greens. Same thing when I take it down. It doesn't desaturate those as much. So it's kind of an interesting way to keep just, in these more saturated areas. See how that color's just kind of hitting there where the light's hitting? And, we could even change the color temperature of that. Which is going to affect everything, of course. But it's just an interesting, interesting way of applying a little bit of color just in one spot. And then, of course, we can also go into our color grading here. And if you want, you can do everything in one place. So we could do a little bit of blue into those shadows, put a little orange into the highlights, into the midtone, sorry, a little yellow into the highlights. And see, now we can start to, just blend some of the color here. And in fact, if we want to bring back a little bit more of the original color, let's pull back on that vibrance. And see what we're doing now, we're starting to mix our color mixer with the original color, but not full. We're not applying all of that original color. We're just giving it a little bit of a, blending the two together. Let's pull our highlights back. And let's pull our shadows up, if we want to show more detail. And you can see what we're doing here is we're going a completely different direction with this. And to be honest, I'm not liking these colors at all. Let's go to our color mixer and choose some decent, not color mixer, we could do it in there too. But let's go to our color grading and let's set some better pictures. So I'm just holding down the Alt or the Option. I'm going to reset. And what I want to do is I want to put some warm colors in here. What am I thinking? Let's put some nice warm colors into the shadows. Some yellows there into the highlights. Midtone, sorry. And let's go warm here. Or maybe not even. Maybe put nothing into the highlights. There we go. A little yellow there into there. A little red there into the shadows. I definitely want to make this darker, so we're going to take those blacks. Punch those blacks up. Punch up those whites. We're going to go super high contrast. Once again, this is a completely different look. And you can see how we can go in there. Let's take those highlights all the way in. You could play around with the exposure, and then we're going for a much deeper, darker kind of a look here. So these are all, at this point here, it's a matter of taste, and I'm thinking the black's a little much. So let's pull that back a little bit. So now we're going to kind of going a different way. So I'm curious. Let's have a look at, you guys got some questions here. I'm going to take a few questions because we've covered a lot of material this week. And let's have a look, see what you guys... Can you remind us, how do you save each version in Camera Raw as you mess around? Okay, so when you're in Camera Raw, it's... let me show you. So say we're messing around here. I'm going to undo that. Oh, let's just choose Filter. Let's go to Camera Raw. And we covered this a little bit last week, but I'll just quickly show you guys. We're going to choose Filter. We're going to go to our Camera Raw filter. And there's two ways to do it. If we're experimenting and we're not sure, hey, this is something, that looks kind of cool. And you're not sure, so what you want to do is go under, you've got two options. You've got your presets, and then you've got your variations. So let me remember where our variations are. So funny, I just did this last week. Okay, so for presets, let me just show you quickly. So if you like this and you want to reuse it, just click on the preset. And then you'll call it, warm mono. Okay, so then you've saved that. You can come back. You can use that at any time. But if you don't want to be using the presets and you're in here, we have the variations. And why am I spacing out right now and not seeing where the variations are? I literally did it last week. you guys ever do that? Just forget things? I am not seeing our variations. You know what? Let me open this directly from Bridge. Because sometimes some of the options, it's open here, open in Camera Raw. There we go. So you don't get it when you use it as a filter. You get it when you go directly from here. So our variations are our snapshots. So here we go. This is the other option. So say we were playing around and you're like, I don't know if this is going to look good or not. Then you choose the snapshots and add a snapshot. We call it yellowy. Which, it doesn't look that good. All right, so let's try something else. Blue. Okay, so you create another variation. That's a bad idea. Although, if you're doing some kind of a nighttime, you want to make it look like it's luminous, painted, glow in the dark. So you're playing around, and maybe we're going to get something that we like a little bit better. Let's go down to take our vibrance all the way down, warm it up a little, add some color grading. Let's just do an overall sepia tone effect. Okay, and maybe we think that might look better. So we go into our variations, which I just spelt it wrong. Don't worry about it. So here's the nice thing about the variations or the snapshots. They're called snapshots, but I think variations describes what they do better. So we can go in here and say, oh yeah, there was that bad idea. Oh, there was the yellowy thing. There was the sepia kind of, yeah, I think I like that best. And then you can go in here and continue. So one of the things you might want to do though is, what if we want to reset? So we just choose reset. There's our photo. Okay, so we can reset that by holding Alt or Option, hitting the reset. But if we go into our snapshots, I guess that gets rid of them. So, however, had we made a preset, those presets are going to stay in here. And there it is, the warm mono right there. So, use these snapshots to experiment, and then use the presets if it's a look that you want to keep forever and then reuse over and over again. Ralph is so happy to see that I forgot as well. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, it happens to all of us. Well, I guess not all of us, but as we get older. There's so many things we can learn in PS. There are endless possibilities in its use, the fun we can have. Absolutely. So, all right, guys, what we're going to do right now is I'm going to close this out for the people that are, just for those who just kind of came, and then we're going to hang out for a little bit. So basically, that's what we're going to do here. And I thought I created a end screen here. There we go. All right, guys. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to join us next week at 1 p.m. Pacific time, and we're going to have another episode of Live from Lockdown. If you guys like this, smash the like button into dust, and if you're not a subscriber yet to Photoshop Cafe, consider hitting that subscribe button, and then you'll get new videos from me every single week. So thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you at the cafe. All right, guys, but we're now coming back because we're gonna hang out and do some more questions. So I'm just gonna drag the questions right in front of me here. And thanks, Ralph. Good to see you. Thanks, Tracy. Catch you later, Bruce. I just sneezed. I didn't want to do it. I turned my mic off. How would you fix the polarizer problem in the wide angle shot clone stamp? John, probably what I would do is I would use a sky replacement. And check out last week. You can see how easy it is to do a sky replacement. So what I would do is when I'm out on that scene, I would probably shoot some skies because I just always do. So I would replace it with another sky from the same scene. That's one way of doing it. Or the other way is just to select it and then just brush it out. You could use content aware fill. You could, do different things. But that's essentially what I would do. Clone stamp would work, but honestly, the healing brush content aware might be quicker, but just an overall sky replacement sometimes. Have fun, Bruce. Later. Thanks, Russ. And so how you guys doing? Drop your questions in here, but also how you guys doing with the with the lockdown. I know a lot of the United States is going into some more lockdowns, particularly California, where right back where we were in February, and some other countries are, some aren't. So hopefully you guys are doing good. Hopefully you've got some human contact, if nothing else. Oh, good to see you again, Kathy. That at least we've got it here. And David Holstock, good to see you again. Klaus, good to see you again. Chris, good to see you. Photo Maker, Ronald, Stephen, Saeed, I think you might be new. Did I say your name right? Numbers keep going up. Yeah, unfortunately. So London came out of lockdown. Hating lockdown, had to change your Christmas plans. Yep, we've got some of that, My Thanksgiving plans were pretty much shot. So hopefully things will be better, and hopefully, 2021 we're going to be better. It'll be a much better year. 2020's been a weird year for sure. Hi, Golnaz. Saeed, perfect, and Asheville, thank you. All right, guys. So, here we are. What would you guys like to? Oh, hang on, Gary. Have you had a chance to check out any changes with the update yesterday? Oh, was there an update yesterday? Creative Cloud, Photoshop update available. Wow, let's have a look. What is that update? Overview from photo editing, whether you can more AI stuff. Remix, retouch, replace, remix, transform images. All right, so we'll check that out later. So there's an update to Photoshop, guys, in case you didn't know. So go ahead and install that. And so thanks for letting me know. I guess you're ahead of me there. I didn't even know. I'll check it out and I'll let you guys know next week. So what would you guys? Thanks, Chris. I'm glad you really enjoyed it. So let me know, guys, what we should do next week. What would you guys like to see? What would you like to see us cover? Black and white solarization. Thanks, Gary. You got my back. Update includes being able to see before and after for localized adjustments. Oh, that's sweet. That's useful. I guess I know what I'll be doing for some of the stuff. I'd like to see some 3D for Tracy. What else would you guys like to see? Of course, it takes a few minutes, by the way, from when I speak and you guys hear it. So, all right. So Tracy and Russ are 3D. GIFs. Oh, interesting. GIFs. Something we don't do much. More fixed my photo. Okay. How ate you? I ate well, thank you. I'm just teasing. I type that quite often myself too. Color range and color replacement. Okay. Make a Christmas scene. Ooh, that's a good idea, Ray. Another 3D. 3D sounds good. Had a hard time with the pen tool. Oh, you're welcome, iTube. Your photos always great. Fix my photos great. Painting. Colonel. I can't find the object selection tool. Not in the tools list. Okay, let me tell you how to fix that. So what's happened if you've lost your object selection tool and you're inside the latest version of Photoshop, what happened is you were using an older preset over here. Now let me go into the screen so you guys can see it. On desktop, so you were using an older preset, and that's why you lost the tool. And so that tool was not available in your preset or your workspace. So all you need to do is see these three little ellipses. Tap on the three ellipses and hold. You'll see Edit Toolbar. You'll see them under the Extra Tools, Restore Defaults, and Done. And then it will appear there. Now make sure that you go in and then you need to save it as a new workspace and replace it with the same one. So make sure you update your workspace. Otherwise, the next time you go back in and you update this, you update Photoshop, you're going to lose it again. So you're going to lose it every time if you don't update that workspace. So hopefully that helps. How about when it's best to use clones to amp patch healing brushes? Yeah, that's a very good one, Ashton. To look at that as an in-depth session. There's a lot of different tools. Anyone tried the content aware tracing tool yet? Well, I guess not. I haven't updated yet, so I guess I better. All right, well, thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging out. And now I'm going to go. I'm going to get me some lunch. And so hopefully see you all again next week. Good to see you all. Thanks for dropping by. Until next time, see you guys.